So a few weeks ago I was out watching a new band in the area. It was a bunch of young guys who've not been playing together for very long. And me being me, I was focused on the guitarist as well. Now, he was a reasonably okay rhythm player, but when it came to playing lead, there were times which, it just wasn't that good. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for people getting out and starting to perform early. I think that's a really good thing. I think it's a really bad idea to sort of stay in the bedroom and try and develop your skills until you can shred like Steve Vai before you start performing. I think it's really important to get out there and perform early and get some of that stagecraft under your belt. But anyway, this guy got me thinking. He got me thinking, what would I do? What could I do for this guy that would deliver a sort of a step change in how he was approaching his lead playing? And actually, if he focused on a few fundamentals, I think it wouldn't take that long at all. And so that's what I thought I'd talk about this week. So the first area for me actually was rhythm. When he's playing his lead work, he kind of lost an awareness of the rest of the band, and his timing was out compared to the rest of the band. And with certain songs, that's really bad, that really jars. What you need to do is to be able to lock with the beat of the rest of the band, have an awareness of them, be able to find what I call the pocket, which is bang on that downbeat, and to be able to stay there through the solo as well. And it doesn't matter whether you're playing a difficult bit and you slow down a little bit, you can't allow yourself to do that. To my ears, actually, it's more important to hit that downbeat than it is to play the right note. And I remember looking at some old videos of Jimi Hendrix, when he's playing live, just watch his picking hand. It's like a machine. And that's kind of what you're aiming for. You want to be able to just hit that beat, hit that downbeat, no matter what. And if you can do that, you will sound so much better than if you allow the beat to stray backwards and forwards. So the second thing he was really struggling with was string bending. And I guess it's not something that he particularly practices. And what he really struggled with was the intonation. It was the pitching of the string bending. It was over-bending some notes. They were coming out far too sharp. And it's kind of forgivable in a way, because when you're playing live, you've got your amp over to one side, or maybe it's pushing its sound between your legs or whatever, so you can't hear yourself properly. And you've got the rest of the band, you've got the drummer to one side with his crash cymbals rattling around your head. So you don't necessarily hear yourself well enough to be able to get the pitching right. So what you need to do is to start to learn your instrument by feel as well, at least know what it feels like to hit these notes. And this means learning your instrument, learning the string gauge that you use, and always playing your guitar in tune. So in most of the bands that I play in, we play in one step down concert pitch, so my top string is actually an E flat. So most of the time my guitar's tuned exactly like that, so I understand the feel of the guitar when I'm in this tuning, yeah? And then you practice it just by playing a note, and then see if you can bend to it. Yeah, and then see if you can bend that note, and then play it, yeah? Pre-bend. Ooh. Yeah, understand what it feels like to bend a string up a tone and start to get that feeling into your fingers. The other thing you can do is use vibrato. Vibrato hides a multitude of sins when it comes to intonation. So if you can just stick a little bit of vibrato on there as well, that can make all the difference. Actually, that leads me to the next point as well, and that's don't just play the notes. Inject some lyricism into your playing. Inject some life into your playing as well. So that means taking advantage of things like vibrato and string bending and slides and things like this. Use these kinds of techniques to add a bit of emotion to your playing, a bit of humanity to your playing, so you're not just playing dull dead notes with no embellishments, with nothing about them at all that makes them come to life. If you can start to focus on that, and I think certainly for newer players, this is much more important than focusing on things like speed and shredding and stuff like that. That you can do as well, obviously, but this will make a step change to playing. Listen to performers like B.B. King, for example, who plays maybe one or two notes in a lick or in a fill, and you can hear the mastery of the playing in those, compared to a beginner who picks a guitar up and just plays just dull, dead notes, irrespective of the speed of how they play them. You can hear straight away whether someone's got a mastery of the instrument or not. So the final thing I'd say to him actually is, don't be afraid of straying from the original version. Don't fall into the trap of feeling like you have to play everything note for note and then lose the musicality as a consequence of it. Don't be afraid of simplifying. You know, if a solo is using a technique and you haven't quite got it down yet, don't use it. Simplify. Introduce some of your own licks and ideas. And actually that's one of the things I like to do when I'm playing, is I'll take the original intent of a song, the original intent of a solo, and I'll try to play it using my own ideas, my own licks and riffs, and see if I can come up with something that sounds similar to it, but uses all of the ideas and the tricks and techniques that I have available to me. That means I can inject my own personality into the performance. It means I can connect with the music, and if you connect with the music, you connect with your audience, and that's the most important thing. And you'd be surprised, you can change things up completely and people think you're still playing it note for note. So it's really not that important when you're playing live to fall into that trap. So that's what I get him focusing on if he asked me for advice. And if he focused on those 4 areas, he'd see a step change in his playing and in his live performance. Much more so than focusing on scales and focusing on playing fast and stuff like that. But I do applaud him for getting out and playing, getting out early on and starting to perform live. It's a hugely enjoyable thing to do, and it's something I very much recommend people do if that's what you want to do. I mean, there's nothing wrong if you just want to play the guitar for yourself and never want to perform for other people, then great. But if you do, I really recommend getting out performing early as you can, just to get, start to learn that stagecraft. But beyond that, it's so much fun as well, and you can build a whole social life around this as well. I remember when I first moved to this town, I moved here on my own. I had a rucksack and I had a guitar, and I was staying in a bed and breakfast. And one of the first things I did was go and find a music shop. Back then they didn't have the internet, but they did have notice boards in music shops of people looking for band members. And within the first week I was in music shop looking for a band that I could join, and that was one of the fastest ways I had of building a social life in a new town. So anyway, hopefully that was useful for you, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.